Happy spring and happy Passover. The thing that I like the most about Passover, it's one of the most important holidays in the Jewish year, is that it is all about the food. So the Seder dinner, which is the big meal for Passover, each bit of the Seder symbolizes part of the Passover story. And we're going to be working with matzah meal, and matzah, as you probably know, is unleavened bread. And when the Israelites were fleeing out of Egypt, they didn't have enough time to let their bread rise. So they had flat bread. And ever since then, they eat flat bread or matzah every year for Passover to remember. So we're going to make my grandmother's matzah ball soup. I have to admit, my Jewish grandmother, not a great cook, but I do remember her matzah ball soup with great fondness. So that's what we're making today. I'm making half a recipe. You'll see I've made several half recipes already. So we start by beating up an egg. The full recipe is obviously 2 eggs. Okay, that's pretty good. Then we take some fresh dill and parsley. If you have only dried, use them. Fresh are better, but as you will see in a minute, it's going to sit for a while to absorb the liquid. So at that point, your dried herbs would blend in. We're going to pretend that's perfectly cut up. There. In go our parsley and dill. They smell really good. Next, 1 tablespoon of olive oil. The traditional thing that my grandmother probably used was schmaltz, which is chicken fat, but I don't have a lot of schmaltz sitting around the house, so I'm using olive oil. If you're not worrying about being kosher, you could use butter, melted butter, but that seems to me just a little too far from my kosher grandmother, so I don't do that. We put that in. I'm just putting it in the thing. And then 1 tablespoon, 2 for the full recipe, of soda water or seltzer. That's going to add just a little fizziness and help the balls, since they, as we know, they don't have any leavening except for the egg, rise. Okay, we're going to add that. And some salt. The amount of salt is going to depend on, I'm not using salted matzo meal, so I'm using a little more salt. Probably not salted, half a teaspoon for the total recipe. Salted, the other way around. Not salted, 1/2 teaspoon. Unsalted, 3/4 or a whole teaspoon. Then this is matzah meal. Basically, matzah meal is just ground up matzah. You can grind it yourself in a food processor, or you can just buy it, which is what I did. Okay, that is our basic little mixture for the matzo balls. Now we want them to blend their flavors and blend their consistency. So what we're going to do now, is cover them and put them in the refrigerator. And then these are the ones I just had in the refrigerator. So they have kind of expanded a little bit. Then what you're going to do is make little balls. If you want to make them by hand, you're probably going to want to oil your hands. I am just using a little tiny scoop. And you really want them tiny because they're going to expand dramatically when you cook them. There we go. Ignore the barking dog. Okay, so that's that idea. We're going to get probably about 10 out of a recipe, 20 out of a whole recipe. Then you pop these in boiling water, cover them, and cook them for 25 minutes. Do not peek. When they go in to the water, they will sink to the bottom. But as they cook, they will rise because they will expand. You can see how much bigger that is than that. This is the expanded ones. And they will rise to the top because they're lighter, they're filled with water. Then finally, one more step. I know it's not that complicated, I promise. You take those little balls that are all puffed up and you put them in boiling chicken stock or vegetable stock if you're a vegetarian. The idea of doing it before with the water is because if you put them right in the chicken stock or vegetable stock, they would absorb all the stock. But when you put them in, You boil them for 15 minutes covered, and you get this lovely thing. They're like dumplings, and they're just delicious, and they're very comforting. So happy Passover.